everyone, it's Ashley and I'm back with another video. Today we're going to be answering one of your most commonly asked questions, and this was submitted to us by our group member Sheila. She's a brand new Cricut user, so thanks so much Sheila for submitting this question. She was wondering that she has a project that she's trying to get a vinyl decal onto, so say something like this or like this, and she's having a problem getting her decal to adhere to the transfer tape to get it onto the project. So I want to show you all the tips and tricks that I know to make your decal transfer successful, and I'm going to show you not just on a flat surface but also on a curved surface, because there are some differences in how you're going to apply it. So if you haven't yet, click the subscription button and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any future content, and let's get to it. We're inside the brand new window for a new project inside Cricut Design Space. This is the desktop version that I'm showing you. If you're following along using your phone or your tablet, you're going to notice some differences in how it's laid out. Using the Cricut app, you'll notice the slice, weld, attach tools, and the grouping and ungrouping tools will be all along the bottom. So that's just a heads up if you see any differences in the video. So we're going to go into images, because we're looking for something to create a sign. So we're going to start with looking for a keyword related to our item. I'm going to look for the word coffee. And as you can see, there's a ton of results. So I'm working with a board that is rectangular in shape, so I'm going to keep that in mind while I'm searching for a design here. If you pick designs that are too tall or too round, sometimes it won't look as nice inside the rectangle. So just keep in mind what designs, unless you're going to layer multiple designs to fill in that space. I've selected some images to take a look at, and as you can see, they're on the bottom of the screen here. We're going to click Insert Images, and that will take all three designs to the desktop here. I'm going to take a look at these and evaluate them as to which one fits the style I'm looking for the best. So already I think I'm going to exclude this one because it is more square and I have a rectangle, so that would leave a lot of extra space along the sides. So if you want to delete one, all you have to do is go up to the red X on the left corner and click that, and that one disappears. So looking between these two, the one on the right has more of the rectangular shape that I'm looking for, and I really like the style and all the little details. So I'm going to select that one, and then I'm going to delete this one. The next thing to keep in mind when you're working is what size is the blank that you're working with. So I measured already my sign. It's approximately 6.5 by 8.5 inches. And if you're trying to figure out the size of your decal, you just click on your decal and it will list the dimensions around it. So this is currently 5.3 by 3.5 inches. Or you can look at the top and it will tell you the width and the height, so that way you can accurately create this the right size. So to change the size, you could change it up there, or you can just drag and click on the corner, which is my preferred method. So 8.5 was the long way, and then 6.5 was the other way. So I want to leave a little bit of extra space so that this looks as nice as possible. So I think I'm going to go with 7.75, right around there. Okay, so that should give us a little bit of extra space around our design, and it makes it a lot nicer visually. It creates kind of a secondary border inside. Because this is a single color, I don't have to really alter anything, and it's already welded together into one single cut. So I can go straight to the mat and click Make It, and it's ready to go. We don't have to worry about doing any mirroring because that's only if you're doing iron on vinyl. So we're doing regular vinyl with this, and we're going to click Continue. For this example, I'm using the Explorer Air 2. If you're using the Cricut Joy or the Cricut Maker, you'll still follow the same steps except for one. So you're just going to click Browse All Materials, and then you're going to scroll through for which material you're looking for, or you can just type it up on the top here. I'm going to be using removable vinyl, so I'm just selecting premium vinyl and clicking Done. If you have the Explorer 2, you can use the dial on the machine to select vinyl, Or you can select the custom setting and then you can use the drop down menu the same way as you would the other machines. So that's the only real difference for how you select a material. And now we are going to go straight to our machine and get everything loaded and cut. We're starting out with loading the mat. I'm using the green standard grip mat. You can also use the blue light grip mat since we're using removable vinyl. Just line up everything within the lines here and just slowly roll it onto the mat, making sure to adhere it well. So let's start out with the tool. We're using the fine point blade in both either the Maker or the Explorer 2. In the Joy, it comes with a single style blade, so you don't have to worry about changing that part out. And the machine is ready to go. It's telling us it's ready to load. So we are going to put our mat in between these two areas here, and the rollers will load it in once we press the button. And then we're going to press the Cricut symbol to go. So we're just going to unload this. Our next step is to remove the vinyl from the mat. So we're going to turn the mat over and we're going to roll the mat away from the project. And we do this so that we don't damage the vinyl that we're working with. The mat is meant to roll and be pliable. If you didn't cut down your vinyl to a smaller section before, or use a pre-measured amount, just cut down the excess vinyl and you can save that for another project. And if you guys would like to see ideas on how to use the smaller pieces of vinyl in designs, leave a comment below so that way I know to make a video all about that. Our next step is to weed the design, and weeding just refers to removing the excess vinyl from the design. So the easiest way to do this is to choose a corner, and as you can see there's a backing paper and then there's the sticker part on the top, the adhesive. So we're just trying to take the adhesive part away from the paper backing. So my recommendation is when you're working with something that has a lot of detail to start from one section and move along towards the other section. If you just pull randomly, you may have a hard time keeping all of the pieces down. So just slowly work from one direction to the other. Our next step is to remove the excess vinyl from inside the design. You can also use the weeding tool, and I will leave links and a coupon code down below in case you're interested. They are affiliate links. But if that's the tool that I tend to use, if it's a very small area that I need to get into. For designs such as this is a pretty large design, so it's very easy for me to weed this by hand. And I have a trick that I always use when I'm removing extra vinyl, which is to get a lint roller and just keep it handy. And that way I can keep all the little pieces off of the table, and then I just remove the sheet once it's very, very full. So it's just a quick hack for keeping your workspace a little cleaner. And you can kind of angle the paper a little bit and it lifts up the piece that needs to leave. So that's one way to do it without having to really overly bend or tear anything. Now that we're done weeding the design, we're going to use the Cricut transfer tape to transfer the design. So this is totally reusable, which is awesome. So you'll just take your design and try to get it approximately the same size as your decal so you don't have much wasting. And then just cut out a matching section. Cricut's transfer tape has two sides. One side is the clear sticker with the grid, and that helps you to line up your design and have it even. And then the other side is the paper. So what we're going to do is peel up a corner of this and remove the paper backing. Our next step is to apply the transfer tape. So if you're not careful and you just set this down, you'll have bubbles underneath it for sure. So something to keep in mind when you're applying this is either start with applying it from the center and then smooth it out towards each corner, or you can pick a side and then start laying it down that way. So I tend to just kind of center it visually and then just set it down in the center and then lightly roll the transfer tape to the edges. And if you have a little bit of extra transfer tape on the edges, sometimes it'll hold it to your work surface while you're working. There are a couple tools you can use to adhere it very easily. The first is a standard scraper, and this is a very small scraper. It's great for small projects. And then there's the extra large scraper, which is great if you're doing large signs or projects where you're worried about getting through it without it taking a long time. So I use this one when I'm doing larger signs, and it's my favorite tool, honestly. So I will have information on that below in case you're interested. So what's your strategy when you're approaching these decals? So for me, I start in the center and I adhere it and I move outwards, so that way we're getting all the bubbles out. So the idea is there's going to be little bubbles around the decal itself. So we'll just start in the center and lightly press it outwards. You'll hear little bubbles as you're working. So listen for the little bubbles. So once you've made your first pass of your design, you're going to double check visually and see if you see any major bubbles. And if not, then you're going to take your tool and keep going along in a different direction. So first we started out from the center out, and then we're going to move side to side, and you can also go up and down. So don't apply too much pressure because you can lift your transfer tape or tear it if you're too aggressive with it. And then it's a good time to go through and look at all the little details. Whenever you have little details on the design, those are the areas that are most likely to have problems sticking. So I always go over the little details extra just to make sure. And then how can you check if your design is adhered? So you can take it and just kind of lift up a corner just slightly. When you lift up the corner, if you see that your design is adhering to it, then you're probably on the right track. If you notice that it still doesn't look like it's adhering correctly, just lay that corner back down and then work on making sure that you've applied it again. When your decal is ready to remove, you're just going to take it and lay it down and hold this at an angle and just slightly pull on it while holding the decal down with your other hand. And we're just going to slightly, very slowly remove it from the backing. If you notice it's still sticking at any point, just turn it back over and continue to adhere it. And there is our decal, and now we're ready to adhere it to our item. So make sure your decal is trimmed to fit, and then what we're going to do is center it over the area that we're working, and we want to make sure it's as centered as possible so that way it will look right when we're working on it. I usually start by laying down the center portion first, the same way that I do my normal projects with using transfer tape. So I lay down the center first and then I smooth out towards the edges. So we're going to take our scraper tool and continue doing the exact same process that we did before when we first adhered this to the transfer tape. So we're going to start from the center and go out, but do it lightly since we don't want to disturb the surface underneath. Now we're going to check our transfer tape and make sure that it adhered correctly. So I'm going to grab a corner of the transfer tape and just slowly peel back. If you notice that there's any pieces that are not transferring completely, just set down the transfer tape again very carefully to not create more air bubbles, and continue the same process. You could take your transfer tape, and since it's reusable, set it aside to use for another project. And just take a look at your completed project. Make sure that there are no air bubbles. If you happen to notice an air bubble, you would just take your tool, say there's an air bubble in there, then what you would do is just take your tool and press it out towards where the edges are. So anytime you have an air bubble, just press out towards the edge, and then that way you would smooth out any potential air bubbles. We're on to the second project, and for this one I wanted to show you how you can make a vinyl decal transfer easily to a rounded object. So I'm going to use a glass for this, and for images I'm looking for summer, and I wanted to use this one. I thought this was really cute, so I'm going to click insert image. And our glass itself is approximately 3 inches by 4 inches. I want to make this a little bit smaller, so I'm going to click on the corner and I'm going to drag it slightly down so that way it doesn't overtake the whole glass. We don't want the decal hanging over the edges. So as you can tell, this is multiple colors, and so we're going to have to prepare our mat to have multiple colors cut, and we can transfer these in stages. So I'll show you some tricks to make this easier. We're going to click make it, and it will tell us multiple mats that we need. Eventually I will do a video just about how you can put these all on the same mat, but for simplicity's sake we'll just follow along with how it does it automatically. So we need to pick up some gray and some other colors. We're going to click continue, and the same way that we did before, we're going to set our material to premium vinyl, and I'm currently going to use the outdoor vinyl because this is going on a glass item that will get hand washed. I'm going to use outdoor vinyl because it has the most resistance to water and sun. So just a tip, if you're working with anything that's going to get washed or put outdoors, always choose outdoor vinyl. And let's go ahead and load this and get this cut. Our next step is to take our glassware that we're working with, and we're going to take an alcohol swab, or you can use just anything to clean it with so that it doesn't leave a residue behind, and that way we get a nice clean surface with no oils. While this is drying, let's figure out our order of operation here. There's 4 pieces that we can add to this, and so we're going to figure out which is our anchor point, essentially, which is the section that we're going to use to build off of. So we know that if we're looking at the design, it's arranged with the fruit on the top, and then there's the words, more words in a different color, and other words. So there's that, and then the rinds go like that. So the rinds will be the last, so we'll take those out of the way. So the easiest way to make sure that we have this squared the way what we want is to work with the words Hello Summer first. So we're going to take our transfer tape that we used for our sign. So we probably need to cut this down though, because that's going to be way too large and kind of unwieldy. So take a look at it, eyeball it, and figure out approximately how large you want to make this. So just rolled that over. I'm going to cut the excess away here. And save the rest. We're going to start from the center and work our way outwards the same as before. Since we're working with permanent vinyl, it's even more crucial that we make sure that this adheres well, because permanent vinyl is very strong in the adhesive, and we want to make sure that we don't make any mistakes with this. I'm going to take our design, flip it over, and remove the backing. Same as before. So how are we going to apply this decal straight to this? The temptation is sometimes to just center it and just place it on there. However, with this design being layered, we need to make sure we leave enough room for the fruit to also be included. So the design has to be offset slightly to the bottom. Because there's a gap in the spacing here, we're going to need to make sure that we adhere one section at a time. It just makes it a little bit easier. So I'm going to start with adhering the word summer, and I'm just going to line it up along the bottom here, pressing just in the center section, keeping the other section out of the way. So I'm starting in the center, and I'm going to work my way outwards here. And we can just keep this out of the way. If you're worried about this moving and you want to have a little bit more leverage to put these sections down, you can make little slices. And then now this will stay up, you can hold that, and you can roll this one downwards on both sides, and you're not interrupting the placement of this top section while you're working on this section. We're going to follow the same pattern that we did before, making sure to try to keep out any air bubbles, working from the center out. You can also take your hands and smooth over that section just to feel if there's any extra air bubbles. After you've adhered the words "Hello Summer," you remove the transfer tape and then you place the next step on there, which is the sweet, and then you leave the little section with the watermelon slice up. And so what we're going to do is just adhere the word sweet, just making sure it's centered in between the two words there, and continuing the process of just making sure to adhere it firmly and completely. Then we can remove that section and work straight onto the next section, which is adding the little watermelon slice. So we can roll the piece and then just start working on adhering it to the next section. And because there is a little curve in the top, you will see some little lines on the transfer tape. So whenever you're working on a curved surface, you will have a little bit of bends, and you can always cut the transfer tape there if it is interfering with what you're working on. But that's very simple, so you can use your fingers to start out, and then what I usually recommend is taking the scraper if it's not completely adhered. But we're just removing that. Now we're working on adhering the last two pieces of the rind, and it's very easy. You just line it up, keep the same gap between the two pieces as you apply them, following the same steps that we've been doing the whole time. And while you guys are watching this video, I would love to know, what are you more excited to work on? Are you excited to work on signs, or more on something like a glass or a cup or an ornament that's curved? If you haven't yet, leave a comment below and let me know which project you think is more fun to do. And do you hopefully feel less intimidated by it now? And there's our first layer. We're working on our second layer right now. I really love how easy it is to work with the rounded edges. As long as you understand the principle of how it works, it's very, very easy. So, you know, just work from one section to another, and you can work with pretty much anything that's curved. How do you think these turned out? I think they turned out pretty cute. I love working with vinyl, and I think it's so versatile. So this is a great skill that you can transfer over no pun intended, to other projects as well. If you haven't yet, make sure to check out the playlist listed above. It's going to have a whole bunch of videos all about Cricut Design Space and Cricut projects, along with using Dollar Tree materials. So that should hopefully help you out. And leave a comment below. Let me know what you're up to today, what you're crafting. I'd love to know. And I'll see you guys later. Thanks so much and have a great day. Bye.